Cool. All right. Well, lights, camera, action, I guess. So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. We are recording today, so this is going to be one of the, hopefully one of the training classes for like new agents that come into the office. So we're getting it recorded, and you can come in and watch it and all that. So I am going to be talking, like I wrote this, if you were a brand new agent. So I think everybody here is a competent, skilled realtor. So there's going to be some things that you're like, well, duh. But again, this is more meant for somebody that's never heard of prospecting or is new to the business, in that type of situation. So what we're going to cover today, this is just kind of the itinerary. So we'll go through like really basic definitions, what's prospecting, how is it different than marketing, who can we do this to, the sales funnel, all of that. Then we'll go through the actual action plan, so scripts, the follow-up plan that I use for my prospecting, including the emails. We'll go through the scheduling. I'll go through all of the systems that I use, so all the actual software. I'll share with you my conversion ratios, so we can figure out exactly how to scale this up. Then we'll also, through this paperwork, we'll go through this worksheet. We can go through your goals and what you want to do with prospecting through a business plan. So this is more meant, I think I know everybody here, but this is more meant if somebody's watching this online. So a bit about me. I've been licensed in spring of 2021. I was 19. I've been full-time since then at 19. I have no family, no friends, nobody that I know in the business. It was just me. My parents thought I was crazy. Straight out of school, I just jumped into it. And I remember I looked up, one of the things they teach you is like you start with your contacts list in your phone and you look at, everybody in there for business. And I pulled mine up and there was 45 people in there. So I didn't know anybody when I started. And so with that, 99% of my transactions are from a prospecting activity. I could count on, one or two hands the amount of family or referral transactions that I've got since then. And my first deal was an open house lead that I got. It was kind of fun. I actually knew the gentleman it was a friend of a friend. But I was 19 years old and I got a $15,000 paycheck, and that completely changed my life. It was amazing. So I framed it. It's in my office, just so I can remember, right? As far as prospecting, I've done, pretty much everything. I started going door to door. That was my thing. I was in a networking group for a year and a half. I've paid for leads. I've done Google Click. I've done Sync, cold calling, etc. And really, I've just found that calls are the best way to do things, right? And then the other thing, I am moving, so this is kind of my last hurrahs teaching these classes. So I'm moving to South Carolina, but that's even more applicable for me because, again, I'm moving somewhere where I don't have a database, so I'm going to be doing all of this to build that database and get consistent transactions in South Carolina. So I'm really trying to live this, right? Okay, so what is prospecting? If you're a new agent, you probably don't know what that term is. You probably know what the word is, but not what the term is. So basically what I would define it as, prospecting is an action that we take by initiating a real estate conversation in order to hunt for transactions, right? So when we prospect, we're not going to wait for people to call us up and ask to sell their house. We're going to hunt for those people. We're going to look for them and go find them, right? We're going to build relationships intentionally. We're going to make sure that we're not waiting, we're creating, right? So generally, activities that we do in real estate are either prospecting or marketing. They're going to fall into one of those two camps here. Prospecting is going to be an outbound action that we take, right? Cultivating a relationship that's a cold cultivation, right? Turning strangers into friends. Marketing is going to be more inbound, right? So working the people that we already know and creating that identity through actions that we take, right? The cool thing is both of them are scalable, right? So in prospecting, we can track conversion ratios. We can figure out exactly how many conversations we need to have in order to close a deal. And we can also scale up our marketing too. So we know statistically that you should be closing on average a 3 to 5% conversion ratio based on your database. So if you have 1,000 people in your database that know your name, they trust you, They're solid relationships, first name basis. Statistically, we should close 30 to 50 deals every single year based on that number, right? So prospecting is going to create the now business, right? You're going to find people that are ready to go next week and they're ready to sell. But ultimately, that's going to create the long-term business once we start marketing to those same people. Does that make sense? So to further illustrate that, this is from the MREA book, the Gary Keller Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which is fantastic. But here's just a quick list of some of these activities that we're talking about. Left side's prospecting, right side's marketing, and some activities are both, right? So generally, when we're talking about prospecting, it's always going to be in person, face-to-face, or it's going to be on the phone. And through there, we can really, there's a whole bunch of different people we can prospect, right? We can call for sale by owners, right? People that are trying to sell their house without a realtor. We can call listings that expired and came off the market. We can pick a geographic area and do what's called circle prospecting, which is basically, finding a demographic you want to work in and focusing on that area and calling those people. But prospecting also could be like community outreach. So if you have, a charity that you work with, if you're in your mom's group, if you have, a church that you frequent, all of that would be considered prospecting, right? Because we're creating new relationships out of nothing, right? You could even go as far to say that, calling builders or banks or creating relationships with companies that have an international reach and have people moving in here. All of that would be considered prospecting, right? So outbound, going out, creating relationships from nothing. Marketing, on the other hand, again, this is going to be the more inbound. So anything that creates your brand identity, that creates people remembering your name is going to be considered marketing. So the big one that everybody, of course, knows is going to be social media. This book was written a long time ago before it was as big a deal as it is now. But everybody focuses now on social media, right? Like, does my Facebook look okay? They focus on their internet presence, right, as marketing. But this could also be direct mail. A lot of people will send out postcards to their database. Promotional items, so all the Realty One group, swag that we have, that would be considered marketing, right? And again, marketing is going to be the inbound, right? Creating that brand identity and getting people to call you when they need help. So which do you do first? If you're a new realtor, what do you do first? And the answer is prospect, right? The mistake that I see really, really frequent is that a new agent comes in and all they talk about is marketing, right? Have you set up your Google business? Have you posted on Facebook? Do you have your website? But the truth is that who are you marketing yourself to if you haven't prospected a database of people that know your name, right? It's completely backwards. We can't market to people that don't know who we are, right? So we need to build that database, and then through marketing, we can solidify your brand identity, and we can create those relationships. And so I always laugh when we see realtors like shaking their butt on TikTok. Nobody's going to call you because you danced to, you did the whip nay on TikTok. But if you reach out and you cultivate that relationship, they're going to call you, right? When they're ready to transact, they're going to call the person that reached out and got to know them and figured out what they need to do. So to illustrate, why we really need to prospect, this is super fundamental, but a lot of people probably haven't seen this if you're watching this and you're brand new. So this is the sales funnel, and I also put this in because these are my definitions that we'll talk about through this. So fundamentally, we're going to have conversations, and I define a conversation as talking to a stranger about real estate, right? A conversation to me could be, hey, are you interested in selling your house? No, hang up the phone. That's a conversation, right? Technically. And through conversation, we're going to make contacts. And contacts are going to be people that you have a good conversation with to the point where they're willing to stay in touch with you. So my thing, I'm big on email. If I get your email, then I've basically broke the barrier to staying in touch, right? So anybody that's willing to stay in touch becomes a contact to me, and I build them out in my database. And then from my contacts will pop off and become leads, right? I define a lead as anybody looking to buy or sell within the next 9 to 12 months. If they're looking in 18 months, they're not a lead to me, right? When we approach about a year out, then they'll become a lead. But I define it as 9 to 12 months. That's a lead to me. From leads, people will pop off the lead and will become a client, right? They'll be ready to transact. They'll sign a listing agreement. They'll be in the car looking at houses. And so we'll further, funnel that down into clients. Then we'll put clients under contract, and then we'll put under contract deals into closings, right? But again, we fundamentally have to start at the top and then shrink that down, right? So if we have a ton of conversations, only a small majority will end up at the bottom of that funnel into closed transactions. So what do we want to do if we want more closed deals? It's literally just as simple as filling up the funnel, right? And please forgive my my PowerPoint skills. I'm not too good at that. But literally, if we want to close more deals, we just have to fill up this funnel with as many conversations as we can possibly have. More conversations equal more contacts, equal more leads, equal more closed transactions. And the beauty of doing this is that we're going to have a ton of conversations, right? And we're going to build a huge database of contacts, and eventually it's going to become self-sufficient, right? So our contacts are going to refer us or introduce us to new people, and we're going to have more conversations, which will make more contacts, right? So it'll grow by itself. Then we'll have all of those contacts pop off and become leads, right? So you might call somebody, you might sell his house. 6 months later, he sends you, his daughter looking to buy their first house, right? You'll have a great conversation. She'll become a contact. She'll become a lead. You'll close that transaction. Then you have another person in your database to refer you, right? So this is where marketing becomes important, right? While we're prospecting, we will simultaneously market to these people to make sure that we're building that brand identity. And the truth is that you don't need to prospect forever, right? Within a couple years, this database will become self-sufficient. You'll be referral run if you do it correctly. So these are some popular lead sources that people will focus on for prospecting. Open houses are terrific. They're my best buyer lead source. Networking groups can be terrific. We can go door to door. You could do booth events at, say, festivals or on the Air Force Base or something like that. We can run geographic farms if we wanted to do that. We can meet people at church or other, work gigs like that. We can prospect our database. So if you did come from another industry, maybe you were in the military for many years, you can prospect your database. That does work. We can prospect by asking family, or we could even, go on the side of the street with a cardboard sign. These are all great. For me, how I think of things is that no matter who you talk to and who you prospect, eventually you're going to have to pick up the phone and call them, right? So if you do an open house, you're going to have to call these people. So I say skip all that. Let's just focus on calling people for our prospecting. And we can call a whole bunch of different people. But I want to call people, right? Calling gives us the highest number of conversations per hour, right? So if we're door knocking, you can only walk so fast between houses. Your church is only so big, right? You only know so many people. But when I'm on the phone, I can zip through a list of 100 people within an hour or two and really, really, really do this quickly, right? Quickly and efficiently. Some of these relationship building activities might be a bit deeper than prospecting. So obviously you're going to know people at your church pretty well. You're going to go out to lunch with them. But ultimately this is a volume game, right? If we want to sell 20, 30, 40 houses a year, we need to talk to a lot of people to make that happen, right? Some more reasons to prospect. It's not fun at first. We're talking to strangers here. But it does create competency in these conversations, right? So if we are a brand new realtor, you don't know how to talk like a realtor, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to learn by doing it, right? I say let's fast track that. Let's talk to strangers immediately, and let's build that competency, right? The other reason to prospect is, again, we're talking about running our business eventually by referral. We know statistically that the lifetime value of one relationship is 8 transactions. So that comes again from the MREA. If we take the average length of a realtor's career and the amount of referrals that one contact can generate for one person, that's 8 transactions, right? So we multiply that by our average commission here in Colorado. A $500,000 house at 3% is roughly $104,000 gross from one contact, right? Go ahead, take your information. So it's fantastic, right? I mean, I don't think there's any better way to do this aside from just calling strangers, making relationships, and then marketing to them. And it's fun too. I mean, you literally sit inside, you can drink coffee. We'll go through my routine, but my routine was literally just sitting at my house, usually in my pajamas or shorts, and just drinking coffee and calling people. Like, it's terrific. We're not out there, building houses or putting roofs on houses. Like, we're literally sitting inside, talking to people, having fun conversations, and we make a tremendous amount of money doing it. I don't think there's anything really better to do. Okay, so you're interested. Who should I call? These would be the most popular lead sources that people would call. There's a whole bunch, but we'll go through them real quick. So of course we've all heard of for sale by owner. For sale by owners usually are going to be a really tough conversion because these people have already decided that they're not worth hiring a realtor for, but they're motivated sellers. They're trying to sell their house. Expireds are probably my favorite. Again, they're very motivated sellers. And they're usually a little bit less angry than a for sale by owner. Sometimes they can still be tough conversations, but usually they're a little bit better because they need to sell, right? They tried to sell their house, but they failed in doing that, right? And if I forgot to define it for any new realtors, an expired is going to be a listing that was put on the market, and the contract period expired with their previous realtor. So maybe they've been listed for a couple months and they didn't get an offer that was, satisfactory to them. For expireds, I think that, I don't know what the number would be, but the vast majority are just going to be overpriced. So, there's going to be some objection handling you have to do when you take an expired listing. You need to set the expectation that their house was overpriced, right? Sometimes the other agent just sucks, so you get to be a hero there. Another one I think is fantastic is circle prospecting. So again, picking a geographic area and focusing your calls on that geographic area. These are the cheapest leads too. You can buy these bulk for $1 or $2 from a title company. These people are not getting phone calls. So a for sale by owner and an expired, other realtors are going to be calling them. It's fine. And so circle prospecting, you're going to be calling people out of the blue, but they're not getting calls from people. They're still hot leads for sure. There's lots of now business to be found in circle prospecting. Everybody knows other people. It's all based on the relationship, right? And then the fourth one I would put in here is absentee owners or landlords. These people are investors. Either they'll call themselves an investor and they're actively looking to add real estate to their portfolio, but they do invest, right? They own a rental property. These are super easy conversations because usually if presented with the right opportunity, these people are willing to maybe add more real estate to that portfolio. And sometimes they're looking to get rid of their rentals, right? It's not for everybody. Maybe they had a bad experience and they had to fix a water heater and an AC in the same year. So these are terrific people to get in contact with. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about next. This is all good. This is all great. There's a lot of options here, but I think creating a plan and putting this into practice is going to be a practical step. So we're going to go through all of these next. Fundamentally, we need to make a business plan. So who are we going to call? How much money do we need to make, I think, is the first place we should start, right? So how many deals do we want to close? And then working back from there, who are we going to call, how often, how many calls do we need to make to hit those numbers, and how are we going to follow up with those people, right? Step 2 would be picking a script provider. So if you don't know what a script is, we'll go through that. It's basically a pre-written conversation starter. It's a script of what to say. So we'll pick a script provider, we'll learn that script so we can make sure that when we call these people, we're not getting lost in the conversation. Step 3, again, is going to be that follow-up system. So we need a CRM. We need to be sending emails, following up with these people. And then step 4 is going to be actually putting it into practice and doing it, right? So we'll start with scripts here. Again, a script is going to be a pre-written conversation starter. It's a framework of what to say, because if we don't know what we're going to say, we're not going to get the result that we want. And ultimately what we want is contact information, right? We want deals, but we want contact information more than that. I think that you should practice scripts. It should be something that is part of your daily routine up until the point when you know them very, very well. And at a high level, you're not going to have a script sitting in front of you, and you're not going to be reading line by line. You're going to more use it as like a framework of what to say, and you're going to know what questions you need to ask. So this is how I learn scripts. You learn it, you focus on your body language, so sitting up and your tone. I think role-playing with other realtors is extremely important too. So instead of practicing this on real people, we're going to practice it with our peers here, and focus on overcoming those objections, if there's anything in there that you don't know how to answer. And then the last step would be, personalizing it, making it not robotic, all of that. Words on scripts, I think there's a whole bunch of scripts. Every real estate coach has one, where they actually usually have, 10, 20, 30 scripts. Most of them are terrible, I think. So I always say, keep it simple. Find one person that you really like how they approach scripts and just stick with it. And I would also say avoid anything that's salesy. I think it works for some people, but for the majority of us, we're not salespeople. We're fiduciaries, and we help people and we create relationships. So I say focus on conversations and focus on creating relationships. And to do that, you need to find a script that gives you room to do that. For me, I use Ricky Carruth. He's the #1 real estate agent in Alabama. You're going to hear me talk a lot about him. I think he's terrific. I've used Mike and Tom Ferry scripts. The KW Ignite scripts are just okay, but there's some good ones. Brian Casella he's a realtor out of Miami. He's pretty salesy, but I think they're good scripts. So we'll go through the exact scripts that I use for prospecting here in a second. But as far as you and your process here, look at the ones that I've brought for us, but ultimately you need to go out and you need to find one that really, really works for you, and then just focus on that script provider and take it from there. So again, Ricky Carruth is awesome. He does over 100 houses a year by himself. He's a solo agent in Alabama. I've spoke with him, I think 2 times. It was like, I was like bowing down. I thought it was amazing. Why I really like his scripts is that he has one script. So one script for all lead types. It's super, super easy, and it's super conversational and relationship focused. So his signature thing, and this is what I say now, is, what in the world can I do for you? It's the value add. So in the script, you'll hear it. The question, is what can I do for you? Is that mowing the lawn, or is it putting a sign in the lawn, right? Another thing about him is that he has hundreds and hundreds of hours of live cold calling on YouTube. So I would put that on, when I'm vacuuming and all that, and just hearing how he overcomes some of those objections. You notice these patterns and you learn how he talks, and that's literally how I learned how to prospect, was just listening to him. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, so I am part of, so he has free and paid coaching. I'm part of his paid coaching. But again, all of his information is free online. He has a YouTube channel, and then I think it's called Gold Bar is the website that you can find more of his information on. And again, it's free, so sign up and do it.
I'm on the free stuff.
Oh, good, yeah. It's terrific, yeah. So in your packet here, this first script, the first paper that we have in here, that's pretty much the same as this prospecting roadmap, just organized a little bit different, right? But this is the script, right? This is the exact script. It's very conversational, but it still keeps you on track, right? So we're not getting lost in these conversations. So if we wanted to go through it, it's super, super easy. You start, introducing yourself, like, hey, is this, Mr. Sparks, right? Yes, this is Mr. Sparks. Hi, this is Benji. I'm with Realty One Group. How are you doing today? Just, asking how they're doing. Sam would probably be grumpy, but I'm doing okay. How are you doing today? And then the next part of the script is I literally ask, or say something about the weather, right? So if it's a nice day, I'm going to be, yeah, I'm just enjoying this beautiful day. Have you been outside? And that immediately, I think, takes the barrier down in the conversation. A lot of other scripts are going to start with, could I teach you some method today to make $100,000 overnight? And nobody wants to get a call from someone, asking them dumb questions like that, right? So if someone calls you up and they're like, hey, how are you doing today? Like, you enjoying the weather? You enjoying the day? I think that barrier immediately drops for most people. They're expecting a sales call and it's just some guy, So usually by this question, a lot of the time you'll go completely off track. So you'll have people telling you about their family or their day or what they're doing or their weekend. You just roll with it, just go with it and just talk to them, like see what's up. Eventually though, you need to get back on track, right? So eventually you're going to want to throw in, well, I didn't want to take up too much of your time today, and then you get to the point of calling, right? So, well, look, I didn't want to take up too much time today, but I saw you had your house listed over there on Spectrum Loop. So it came off the market. I didn't really know what was going on with that. What's the story there? Like, what happened, right? And it's like, boom, immediately from that question, the guard will drop and they'll open up. They'll start telling you all about, what they were trying to do or what happened or why their realtor was terrible. And from there, at that point, again, it's a conversation. I just go into trying to get contact information, trying to identify what they need and seeing what in the world I can do for them. So that's pretty much it. Any questions about the script? No? Well, that's good.
So I'm going to interject for a minute.
Yeah.
Next week's session is really a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
The intention is to kind of, hopefully, I guess I forgot to ask if you were available next Thursday. She led some of our call sessions. But I thought next week we could be,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to have somebody how to actually go and look for what we're going to prospect, some of the tools we have, but also maybe even some of the calls.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know a lot of our agents are interested in prospecting, but it's like this big unknown.
Mm-hmm.
When it's unknown, it's scary, and therefore we don't.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, I think that would be, I would love to do a workshop if people want to show up, and I would be happy to just sit here and do a call session and try to get an appointment and see if we can, get someone on the phone that wants to buy or sell, right? So I'm happy to do that, Carrie, if we have people that are interested in hearing these calls, real time. So yeah, anyways, this is the script that I use. It's also the same one here. It's pretty much the same thing. I really just, how's it going? Really just learned it by doing it and by listening to Ricky Carruth make these calls, online. So this is great. We'll talk a little bit more about these calls and how they go later, but moving into the next section here, eventually we're going to get a lot of pieces of contact information from these people, and we need to stay in touch with them somehow, right? So my simple follow-up, plan is I do like 2 or 3 things. I send a weekly email every Wednesday morning, every single week, and I plan to do that for the rest of my life, I send 1 email to my entire database, every single person I know. And then I also schedule follow-up calls in my CRM based on the last conversation. So as an example for this point, if I have a conversation with a lead and they say, yeah, the time's not super great, we're thinking in the next, year, 2 years, I'll call them back in 6 months later and just check in and say, hey, did anything change? What do you need? Like, what's going on? And so in my CRM, if you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that. In my CRM, every time I have a call, I just make a quick note about what we talked about, and then there's a task in there. So it's a calendar, and I'll place on the calendar, call this person back on this date, right? And that's literally all I do. Yeah, you have a question?
On your email, is
Yes.
it a canned email? Or
I will show you all my emails, yes.
Your CRM, what do you use?
I use HubSpot, and I will also show that to you, yes. So why follow-up is super important is that the majority of people are not ready to transact at the first time that you talk to them. Again, it happens. So if you call and expire, there actually is a pretty good chance that you might get someone that wants to put the house back on the market. I can't tell you how many times, within 24 hours, I've been to the house, got photos done, got a listing agreement signed, and put it on the market, right? That happens frequently, but a lot of the time they're not ready, and maybe they're taking a break from selling. So you need to make sure that you're staying in touch so that when they are ready, they're not going to go to somebody else, right? There's a lot of real estate agents in this town. Everybody knows somebody, so how are you going to make sure that you stick out and stay front of mind so that when they are ready, you can really hop on top of that. So some other things I do for follow-up, it's more marketing, but anytime I have somebody, even cold calls, I go find them on Facebook. So I sync my contacts to my Facebook and I add them. I have a Google Business, I have a website. And then when I do my follow-up calls, if I can't get them on the phone, I just shoot them a quick text. But again, I think keeping it simple and scalable is important. Because again, if you have 1,000 people in your database, you need to make sure that you're still staying in touch with them. And that's why the emails are super important.
So you go in and you friend people on Facebook?
Yep. So I add them to my contacts on my phone. And then I've synced my contacts to my Facebook account. So if they use the same phone number to sign up for Facebook as I have, I'll find them. So yeah, if I talk to Joe Bob, who lives over in Widefield, and he was an expired listing, after we get off the phone, he's going to get a friend request from me on Facebook. So part 2 of follow-up is the CRM. So again, if you're a new realtor, you've probably never heard of that. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management System. Again, super basic, but basically what this is it's like a contact book on steroids. So it's usually a system that you'll access online. You'll have an account online, and in your CRM, you'll have a database of all of your contacts. Associated with each contact, you can put everything from phone number to email. All of your transactions can live in your CRM, so you can track everything you have under contract, everything you have coming up. And so again, this is like the heart of your real estate business. You need a CRM. Within this, you'll track everything from your people to your calls, all of that. Everything will be in your CRM, right? So here's a quick little screenshot of just a random lead I have in my CRM. This is kind of the information that you'll have. So over here, we have Justin. There it is. We have Justin. I found him from my dialer. We've got an email, a phone number. He was an Olympic skier that I cold called. So I made a quick note that, this is what he does for work. He's in my downline. He's looking to buy in Black Forest. And I need to update it, but you can also put like a close date. This should be June of 2025. So I messed that up. And I didn't take a screenshot of it, but in this CRM too, I have all of my call notes. So I've talked to him several times, and every single time I talk to him, I just write, we talked, he has a daughter, her name is blank, we talked about this, he's looking to do this. Everything is in this CRM just so I can track it and I know what's going on with all of my people. So the other thing about following up, I have this thing I call like enter my world. So I don't know if this makes sense or if it's weird for people, but I just kind of made this up. I think that everybody has like their own little world that we're part of, right? And so as an example of that, like, I'm a person, but I have hobbies, I have friends, I have pets, I have all these things going on, and I want people to know about that and feel like they're part of that. Because I think that takes the barrier from like cold calling real estate agent to some guy that lives in Colorado Springs and is a real person and has, real relationships. So as an example of that is like I'm very assumptive in my conversations. So if I call somebody, and I have my example here, if I call somebody, I just assume that they know me. I'm calling them like they're my long lost cousin. So instead of saying, my girlfriend and I went to the lake this weekend, I'll say Jen and I went to the lake, right? And they're like, well, who's Jen? Like they have to infer, who is that person? But again, they're like, I'm talking to them like they're my cousin, right? Like they would know who Jen is. And I try to do this in everything. So in my emails, I'm very assumptive. I'm talking about my family and my dog. In social media and conversations, if I think of my audience, it's my family, right? Even though I know that these are going out to people I've probably never even met in person before. So another example is instead of saying the weather will be warm this weekend, make sure to take advantage of it. I'll say I'm gonna wash my car this weekend, right? They're like, oh, this guy will be in his driveway washing his car, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but this is just kind of my mentality of how I approach cold prospects is yes, it's a stranger, but I want them to think of me as a real person, here. So I think it's equally important to just be unique. I think that's corny advice, but it's really easy for me. I've got bright red hair. I don't look like a real estate agent. I look like some college delinquent. But I have things about me that are unique and people remember it, right? So I love Volkswagens, I love cars. And I'll mention that to people, and then later when we talk, they'll be like, oh yeah, you got that VW. So just, think about that when we're doing our business plan is what about you is unique? Everybody has something. And how can you utilize that to break that barrier as far as, a cold prospect into somebody that knows you, right? That goes back into branding, right? You could say this is branding, but you want people to feel like they know you. You don't want them to you don't want to just be another phone call that they got throughout the week, right? You want to be a real person that got to know them. Okay, so the emails, I think this is the secret sauce. This is where the majority of my conversions happen. So again, I'm calling people. I put them in my CRM, and then everybody I know gets the same email every Wednesday morning. I hand make this email from a template, so it takes me 15, 20 minutes every single week. But this is where the majority of my conversions happen. So people will email me back, they'll text me about it. I try to make them very interactive, so they have links, they have callbacks, they have responses, they have reasons for people to reach back out to me. If not, they're just, full of personality, I guess. People remember them. So I do 50-50. So I'll do 2 weeks and 2 weeks of real estate and non-real estate. The non-real estate will be everything from Colorado Springs specific emails to just random things. I did one that featured Buc-ee's because I went to Buc-ee's and I thought it was fun. And it's super easy. You can make a whole bunch in advance and schedule them in your CRM. So sometimes I'll be lazy and I'll just sit down for an hour or two and make a month's worth of emails and just schedule them. And yeah, you want to send this to literally everybody that you know. So you'll go through your contact card. You'll find all of your family, all your friends. If you don't have their email, text them, get their email. Put everybody in this, all your contacts, everybody you're calling. Everybody gets in this and they all get an email every single week. These are some examples. I just took a month or two's worth of titles. So one was asking to sell to a prospect of mine. This one featured the Pikes Peak Air Show. This was just a market update. This was also a market update, just titled different. This one was a hiking spot that isn't on the map, but I put a secret spot in there, right? So they're super easy, and 50-50, about half real estate, half non-real estate. And so I wanted to just show you what they look like. I did want to say I average a 39% open rate on all my emails. So if I have 800 people in my database, I'd be 350 people every single week are opening it. I think that's pretty good. I know a lot of people are just hitting mark as read, but it's okay. It's okay. So here's just a random email. This is exactly what I sent out. And it basically looks the same every single week, right? So this one was featuring, what was this one featuring? I don't even remember. Oh, this was things to do in Colorado, right? So in my emails, I always have, the logo and this little slogan. I have a picture and a comment about the picture. These are all links, and I have more links down here. But these are all links. This is a weather cam, so they can check the weather. Then I have the main text of the email. And so in here, we have different featured things to do in Colorado. So if you click this, here are all the free days at the museum up in Denver. And through your CRM too, you can track all the activity. In your email, it's really creepy. So you can see, the average time people spend looking at it. You can see exactly who clicked the link and how long they spent on it. You can track everything to see, how people are responding to this. But this is literally it. I have one little main text here where I'll talk about the topic. I'll have a little call to action here. I'll have all these links to my Realty One Group website, and then I'll just have my picture at the bottom. So over here, this is my template. So every single week, this is what I come in and I edit to make the email. Again, it's the exact same thing. It's the logo, the slogan. I'll throw a picture in. I'll make a comment about it. I'll edit the main text. I'll change this call to action to make it a little bit more unique every week. But the links are the same. The picture is the same. I have the same slogan there. This is just the mobile view. So it's super easy. This is all I do. I think it would be more, more intricate and more detailed, but my thought is I don't have time to sit and make an email from scratch every week, so I just use a template, and it works pretty well, I think. So I actually made this template myself. It took me an afternoon. So I picked a black background. I picked, the text and the font and all that. But to make it, Ricky Carruth, again, I love Ricky Carruth. I just copied his. So all the words here, I didn't write this. He wrote that. All of these links, his were a little bit different, but I literally copied the font. I copied the colors. Everything. I didn't make it. I just stole it. So, yeah. And so again, with this too, I'm happy to send out this email to people too if you want a copy of the template. That way you can copy paste it and just use it, for your stuff.
This concept and approach works with all of them.
It does, and I think the only piece of advice I would give is that whatever you choose to do, just make sure it integrates with your CRM. So you want to have one central location for as much as you can have, right? You don't want one app for this, one app for this, one app for that. So find a CRM. We'll go through CRMs in a second, but find one that has email capability so you can literally come in 15 minutes, just quick whip up an email. Make sure that you're not missing any weeks, right? We're trying to, lower the barrier to entry to doing some of these tasks. So as far as a schedule, this would be an ideal schedule to me. I think that doing your calls in the morning is the best. So really, I think that just creating some sort of structure and some consistent time to do this lead generation is super important. If you don't have a consistent time to do it, you're not going to do it. So I think making some sort of schedule is super important. And then, of course, having flexibility because we're not robots and we can't be consistent. So for me, I started scripting at 8 a.m. when I was really producing here. Eric's a realtor in Georgia. I met him on Facebook, but we've been accountability partners for almost 2 years now. He's also a Red X agent. So we would, for an hour in the morning, we would just catch up while we're drinking coffee. But then we would also go through the script and just warm up with the conversation so that when you actually get on the phone, you sound good, right? Then 9 to 12 would be the best I would think call block, right? We could get super far in the woods as far as you can track answer rates throughout the day and the best time to call people. I just say whenever you can make time for it, it's more important to actually do it than to prioritize, optimizing this 4:30 to 6:15 call block, right? Then 12 would be lunchtime, and that should be PM. But yeah, I like to take time off, so I like to go on walks. If I'm home, I have been known to occasionally maybe nap for 10 minutes, occasionally, right? And then so how I would optimally have my day scheduled is that after lunch is when you take care of literally everything else. So in the morning you prospect, and then you wait until after lunch to actually fulfill your transactions, right? And it's really, really hard because you'll have people calling you all morning that want to go see houses or maybe need to schedule an inspection, whatever. I try to do as much as I can, from like 1 p.m. on, so it doesn't interrupt the calls, right? I'm a terrible role model because it's hard, like it's really hard, but at a high level, I think that would be the best way to do it. And we'll go through tracking as well, but I think if you're going to prospect, you need to have some way to track your numbers. If you don't track it, you're not going to know how much time you're spending, who you're talking to. So through your lead generation, make sure that you have a way to track that, right? The only other thing I would say is that I try to plan my lead generation a day in advance. So I want to know who I'm calling the day before so that when 9 o'clock comes, I'm not trying to make a list of leads, right? I have the list ready, I'm ready to go. So these are the 5 systems that I use for literally everything. This would be like, yeah, if I could get rid of everything else, I would, and I would just keep these 5 things. So for my CRM, we talked about that earlier. Mine is called HubSpot. It's 100% free. There's no cost to do it. I can do everything from emails to texts to calls and all that. It does look like it was built by an old man, so it's not very user-friendly, but it works terrific, right? And I would recommend this as like a good free way to start. For my dialer, as well as my data source, I use Redx. So if you've never heard of a dialer, basically it's some way to call a list in an automatic way without having to dial the numbers, right? So you'll generate a list of leads, and then it'll quick dial through them until you connect on the phone with somebody. And so Redx also is a data mining application. So in Redx, it's going to generate the list of expireds for me, the for sale by owners. I can pull geographic areas for circle prospecting. It'll even do foreclosures and everything like that. So I would say, Redx is probably my favorite. There's a whole bunch of different dialers you can use. We can go through those later. I think they're terrific. They just get expensive. So this might be something that you start using free prospecting, and then once you have some money to invest, right, we could pay for a dialer. I use Trello, so I was going to show this to you. This is just, I copied my template, but we use this, Denise, on Jamie's team, and I just copied it. But once I have a house under contract, this is how I track the tasks of that transaction to make sure I'm actually doing everything I need to do. So in Trello, I'll make a card. In here, I'll make all the notes about the transaction. Here's my checklist, like did I set a sign at the house, did I order the O&E? This is just how I track the actual transactions, and then I move them as we go in different phases of the deal, and the tasks will change, right? So like once it's on the market, are we doing open houses? Once it's under contract, like did we send out like a TC introduction, or like were HOA documents sent out, right? So whatever you do, I think Trello is really great, but just make sure you have some way to track all of your actions. Then I use Google spreadsheets to track my prospecting. So again, I think that we need to know who we're calling and how long we're calling and all of that, right? So this is just a copy of my call tracker. It's a super simple Google spreadsheet. And so, I'll mark the dates here, and then I will just fill this out. So like I dialed 100 people, I had 18 conversations, maybe I had, 13 conversations. I only added, 5 people to my database. Of those 5 people I added, I had 2 leads, I called for 3 hours, I set 1 appointment, and then this will just total at the bottom for the week, and then I'll compile all that data together to get my conversion ratios, right? And then here I'll just make notes, where did I set an appointment from? Was it an expired? Who did I call? Expired, circle prospecting. And then I have down here just the different months. So again, this is the template. I can send it to anybody that wants it. But end of my prospecting, I just go in and I type all the information so I have it and it's ready to go. And then the only other one I use is that I think is super important is Gmail. So I can just pull up my inbox. So when I'm doing transactions, I have folders here. So if this is an active listing I have, and say this email belonged to it, I'll just drag and drop it into a folder, so that way I'm not losing emails, during a transaction. So I know that stuff isn't like prospecting, but it all comes together, right? And if we're going to be filling this database full of people, we need to have systems behind it so that it doesn't get overwhelming and we can actually do it. Okay, so conversion ratios. So when we're prospecting people, it's very predictable. So taking actions over time, we can track all of the metrics here and find exactly, as an example, blank calls equal blank closings, right? And I do have this sheet in the packet. So conversion ratios, these can vary based on skill and time and all that. Mine were terrible when I started. They were awful. So you have to just get to work and actually start doing these actions and tracking them to watch your conversion ratios increase. But my numbers, I have on average when I'm dialing with a dialer, I have 9 conversations an hour. A conversation to me could even be a connection that doesn't turn into a conversation, right? So if they say not interested and hang up, or they answer the phone and I'm like, hey, how are you doing today? And they hang up, that's still a conversation to me. So this could be answers, right? I have about a 16% pickup rate for my leads. Again, depends on who you're calling. So this can get better or worse depending on circle prospecting or expireds. But following that, I average about 56 calls per hour on the single line dialer. 20% of conversations actually turn into contact information. So I usually get 1 or 2 an hour while I'm dialing. These are contacts, right? So people that have given me their email address, they're okay with me staying in touch. They were nice on the phone, right? It's usually 1 or 2 an hour. So following that logic, we need 918 dials to close a deal, right? So every 30 pieces of contact information will eventually turn into a closed transaction. My numbers are pretty heavily on like expired and like hotter leads. So if you were focusing on circle prospecting, that might go down. These are all relative, like take it with a grain of salt, right? But also it's like 17 hours on the phone should statistically turn into 1 closing, which is really crazy to think about. I mean, you could do that in a week, right? And the cool thing too is like these numbers don't even reflect metrics like referrals. So if you add someone to your database and then they refer you to a brother, sister, mother, whatever, these conversion ratios don't even take into effect that, right? So just doing a worksheet, in that packet, I do have the 0 to diamond, business plan. And so we can go through it together, but just to kind of illustrate, why conversion ratios are important, we can track exactly how many calls and our actions every single week based on our income goals, right? So say you want to make $100,000, right? I think we all do. We're going to first get some information here. So we have an average home price of around $500,000, an average gross commission of about 2.75, because you'll get some 3s, you'll get some 2.5s, would be about $13,750. If your average office check cut there is $1,100, because we're all Realty One agents, your average check before tax would be about $12,750. Does that make sense? So the monthly expenses, this should be yearly expenses, not monthly. That'd be a lot to pay every single month. But like, it's gonna be about $3,000 a year for the license, for office dues, for your contract software. And then I factored 25% for taxes. That you should probably do a bit more than that. So if your goal is 100,000, we'll say we need about 128, right? If that makes sense. Then we'll add whatever other expenses we have. So if you are paying for a dialer, it's going to go up. And we'll take that number, the amount that we need to make, divided by our average check, and we'll get our transaction goal, right? So Carrie has made it amazing for us. We are a lot cheaper to be here than a lot of other brokerages. So to get about $100,000 net, if we're going to have an average home price of about $500,000, that's only 10 deals. It's only 10 transactions. And you could always round that up, but generally we're going to need about a deal a month, right, to do 6 figures. So now let's take that transaction number, right, of 10, and let's apply it to the conversion ratios that I use. 10 transactions by 918 calls per deal is going to be 9,180 calls to get that amount of transactions. Divide that by 56 calls an hour is 164 hours total of calling. Divide that by 12 months, that's 14 hours a month of prospecting. Divide that by 20 working days in a month, which gives you weekends and a vacation. That's like an hour of calls a day. That's it. I think the number was like 0.89 or something hours. So I rounded up to about 1 hour every single day of prospecting, right? I think that's super, super reasonable. I don't know if that's surprising for you, if that's higher or lower. But the truth is that most people just aren't willing to do it. And I'm guilty of that too. Like last year, I traveled like 2 months out of the year, and I was not focused and here and busy. But you look at my conversion ratios, I was calling about an hour a day if you took all my prospecting and averaged it out for all the days. You're never going to have to call again if you prospect and you do it with diligence and you do it every single day. So this was my exact business plan. If you have a profit goal of 100,000, I budgeted 35 for taxes and expenses. That was 12 transactions a year, which was about 1.5 hours of calling every single day. And when I counted up my calls last year, it was about an hour and a half every single day. So I would call, let's say it was May, I was calling 2 or 3 hours a day. Then August and September, I was just not here. So, take those days away. But if you average it all out, it was about an hour and a half every single day. My goals here too, I want a vacation every year. Every single closing, I either go out to dinner or like buy myself something. And then I want to do a weekend trip every single month. So that was part of my business plan. As far as lead generation, I was circle prospecting, expired, and open houses. Those were my 3 picked sources for leads. And then my 3 marketing things here was an email every single Wednesday forever. I post on social media and I find clients on social media, so add them on Facebook. And then maintaining my online presence, so a Google business page and a website, and the email feeds to the website. So in the Zero to Diamond business plan, this is exactly like the framework of what he asks you to do in it. You need to pick your profit goal and then figure out how much you need to call. And then you need to pick lead generation and marketing strategies that you're going to do to fulfill those goals, right? So again, I hope I made it simple, but like this is literally everything I do. I call strangers. I try to make a relationship with them and get their contact information. Once I do that, I put them in my CRM. I email them every single week. I touch base with them, see what I can do, how I can help. And then as soon as it's appropriate, I do want to set an in-person appointment as soon as possible. So we'll meet here at the office. We'll go to coffee, do lunch. And then they're going to love me. So then I'll sell their house. And then I'll put them on that email and still continue to work them for referrals, right? Super, super simple. That's all I do. So some more resources, we've talked about some different systems here. Some popular dialers, RedX is the one that I use. Mojo's another, popular one. Vulcan 7's popular. CRMs, these are probably the 3 that I would recommend. So HubSpot is what I use. Follow Up Boss is one of Carrie's favorites. Top Producer is another good one. If you're not ready to pay for leads, maybe we look at a title company. So title companies can generate lists for you of geographic areas. They can also pull things like foreclosure and stuff like that. So if you don't want to pay several $100s a month for a dialer, maybe call up Shelly at Heritage and just say, hey, I'm looking for these leads. Can you make me a list? And I pulled a list from Heritage. I don't remember exactly how many it was, but it was like thousands of leads, and it was like $2. So you could do that all day. You could get as many leads as you want and just start calling them. You can go straight in the MLS and you can pull expired or canceled listings. If you want to find their information, you can use Forewarn to look them up, or any other public database, right, to get their phone number to call them. I think PropStream does leads as well, so you could pull them there. But then once you've closed some transactions, maybe we wait to get a dialer, but then you can invest in that dialer and that'll just, skyrocket your conversions. You could also look at like Google Click. It's again expensive, but paying for leads is another way you could add to that. So I think that's about it. If you guys want the slides, just text me your email.
Send everything to me and then I'll
Okay,
follow it.
cool. Or you could text me and I'll email it to you.
One other thing, if you'll send me your newsletter too.
Yeah, for sure, all the emails.
One of the things, you guys know that, RedX is one of Benji's favorite, and I think when you are working expireds, is probably one of the better ones. But not all of us do that, right? So the other two you heard me talk about that I really like is PropStream. I use PropStream heavily because I use it in my my market. I use it in my pre-listings. So it helps me get that along with RPR and Zillow and Realtor.com's estimates. Give me a range so that I don't spend a ton of time doing comps before I ever see the home, but I can still talk intelligently. Vulcan 7 has similar kinds of capabilities. Vulcan 7 works a lot like RedX, where it's its own CRM, it has its own dialers built in. It's kind of a personal preference. I'm very simple, partly because I've been doing this for so long and I'm so flippin' old, that I like it super simple, and because I'm managing a brokerage and my own business too, I tend to do very targeted prospecting. So I pull very specific lists, and I might only have 12 people I'm following for a month, as a pre-foreclosure client or something like that. Whereas Denise, I think, tends to do a broader shotgun, a lot like Benji does. So it just depends on where you're at in your career cycle and kind of how much you're doing. So some of us, Denise tends to do a lot of Buffini type work too. So prospecting is a piece of your business. And for some people, like Benji, when he was starting at 18, 19 years old, it's a huge piece of his business. So almost all systems are geared around that. Where somebody like me, it's a supplement to my business because I have a strong sphere. So I'm going to do much more targeted prospecting because I've got other things that I'm focusing on. So that's part of what we try to encourage in this brokerage is you borrow pieces and then you fit them into your business plan. So his business plan is very simple. And if we were doing a business plan, I'd say, okay, now Benji, what are you doing for your follow-up, right, after you close? That needs to go in your business plan. But, I think when you're starting and you're just trying to get your business going and you don't know where to start, Benji's approach, I think, is probably what about 85% of our agents need to follow. But then you've got Matt over here who's coming in with a very strong sphere, even as a newer licensee, and he's going to take it a very different angle, but he's going to borrow pieces. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to round that out. And again, for a lot of you, when you're starting off your business, use the free stuff. We've got a ton of it offered at Realty One Group. For a lot of agents, it's all you'll ever need. But then as you get more mature, or you want to automate, like I've moved towards automation, things like that, then I use Follow Up Boss. But there's a lot of options, so we just kind of, as we talk and coach, you figure out kind of where you're at, and then if you're just trying to use a lot of our free tools, then Crystal and some of the agents who are more adept at those systems are going to work with you to teach you. I am not that person. So, makes sense? And we've gotten kind of, some of you have helped us develop these courses. So is there anything I'm leaving out that you think is important, especially since we are trying to record this for our newer licensees as they join us? We're going to lose our teacher.
Yeah, thank God.
No, we're not.
You said that you're using Zillow and RedX with PropStream.
I don't use RedX because I don't do expireds.
I need to get that medium price range before you go on with this.
Well, it just depends on what you're going to do. I think, like for you down in Pueblo, you've got several approaches. One of the things, I just sat down with Larissa last week, and when you're starting or you have a smaller market, so like Larissa's market is the Florissant, Lake George area. I specifically told her I don't know that you need a RedX because the market's so small. So we looked at how do you go in and farm, basically pull your list out of the MLS. And, again, in Florissant, I'm like, don't call them immediately, maybe call them 3 or 4 weeks later, so that all of the calls are dead, right? So I showed her how to use the MLS to search. You could do the same thing with Pueblo, because your market's different, and you and I have talked about you maybe aiming for a little higher price point, because you're tired of chasing the $150,000, $250,000 closings, right?
And I would think about geofarming with the title companies, since they can tell you who's more likely to sell.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was planning, since I have these 2 closings, I'm gonna get Red X to write up Benji's stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
So Red X and PropStream both allow you to set parameters. So I tend to set a lot of parameters and I try to encourage the agents to do that because, frankly, the general farming approach is expensive, super expensive. So Mo's a great example. Mo lives right over in this area. He wants to farm his neighborhood, but again, he's starting out, right? The license less than a year. So what we talked about is pulling his entire neighborhood to hit them twice a year with a postcard, something they don't have to open before they throw out, right? But then narrow in a list based off how long they've owned their home, maybe how much equity they built, whatever his criteria is. That list may be someone he hits more regularly with door hangers, newsletters, postcards, mix them up, because PropStream Red X Vulcan 7 will allow you to skip trace, which gets you their email and their phone number. So now you have multiple ways to hit them, and the people that you think are most likely to sell, you can, as long as you're spreading out how you hit them, so it's not all by mail, then you've got options and you're staying in front of those people. But in most cases, he wants to be his neighborhood expert, so all of his neighborhood needs to see his face. But again, some things I pulled off of the Tom Ferry side is where we kind of try to mix it all up is when Mo was doing his branding, I said, if you're going to want to be a neighborhood expert, then you need something from your neighborhood in your photos or on your website. And so they had a monument sign going into the neighborhood. So there's, little things that you can do as part of your website, your branding, or your newsletter, such that when it lands, it's not just Joe Schmo coming from across I-25 in the neighborhood, right? So, anyways, just different.
And you're using that for circle prospecting as well, Benji?
Yeah, so Red X was everything. But no, I agree. It's this is one way to do things. There's no right or wrong way. I think anybody that doesn't have a database should think about, prospecting and maybe even a dialer, but there's just so many resources, But yeah, I was just going to show you Red X if anyone's interested in this. So yeah, this is the dialer. Basically how it works, so we have all of the prospects just in one folder, and then you sort it using criteria over here. So in here, this is going to be information that the dialer pulls from a combination of the tax assessor office as well as the MLS. So for example, this house on Walnut Street, it expired for $875, and the date is right here. So it was listed on the 6th, expired, or was canceled, excuse me, on the 4th, so to yesterday. By Jed, I know him, he's a good guy. So within this contact card, it's going to have all of their phone numbers. Sometimes it'll find an email, but basically, within the dialer, we can find whatever leads we want. We can click them, and then we can dial them. So I don't think I need to. We can go through this in depth if people want to later. But basically, within here, this will be a really quick way we can call all of those phone numbers to make sure that we're, actually getting people on the phone to talk to them, right? So I'll wait for this to come through. Let's see if it'll come through. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so basically how it works is that you call the phone number on here. So I'll call that number.
Welcome to Wave.
Cool, and you'll put the code in so it'll connect. And then this is literally what the dialer looks like. So it'll be calling all these phone numbers automatically for you, and it'll come from your cell phone number. So it'll, look like you're calling them from a phone. But yeah, you can configure all the settings, but basically you just hit, dial, and it's just gonna start zipping through them, right? So again, you can configure all the settings that you want to. Leave a disposition, if you didn't answer, then you just leave it there. So I don't know, I didn't want to go super far in the woods with this. But yeah, I mean, maybe we can carry a call session, and I'll just put my screen up here and just pick a list and call through them and try to set an appointment. That might be fun. So.
I'll also try to see if somebody can stand in for me on prop stream side, so that if they want to see the difference or something.
Exactly, yeah, that'd be great.
Because I think those are the two most common
Yep.
Just
So.
again, the more comfortable people get with some of these concepts and tools, the more likely they are to use them, and therefore the more likely they are to actually run the business.
Correct, yeah, and I think as long as you're putting in effort and you're doing it kind of smart, I mean, you're going to find transactions through PropStream or through RedX. The truth is that most people just don't do any of it, so it's like you're not going to find people that want to sell their house with you if you don't actually call them or reach out or market to them or anything like that. There needs to be some sort of action there, right? So that's all I had.
So does the dialer just automatically dial the first person on the list?
It'll go through all the phone numbers, yeah. So next time I can teach, when I go through next time, I'll just show you guys how we can sort all the fields in RedX. So if you don't want to call, do not call registry, you can take that out. If you only want to call in certain price points or geographies or anything like that, you can sort all of it in RedX. So again, when I'm prospecting, I'm going to pick what kind of leads I want to call and then further go from there. So like maybe I want to call expired listings that expired a year ago but never relisted, right? There's thousands of houses that tried to sell at one point but never put it back on the market, right? So we can find all of those in here and call them. And it's all fields that we can sort by. So.
Did you learn how to do all that in their training?
Yep, so they have a little academy thing here. It'll walk you through all of the settings that you can configure, but it's really not that complicated. You can figure it out in a day. What was more important for me is listening to other people doing it. So watching the live streams that Ricky Carruth did, that was exactly how I figured out how to do it.
He's pretty smooth.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
So.
PropStream is the same way. They have tutorials, so I think Matt was actually digging in, and he was headed to some competitions with some kids, and so while he was traveling, he was diving into a lot of the training videos.
Nice.
Open 7 does the same thing. Most of them have pretty robust training, and of course there's always a